of negotiation.
Yay.
Hard starts versus strong starts.
And at Kogod School of Business, and I do research and teach on the topic of negotiation. So I'm particularly excited to be part of this conversation today. Whether you're a Black woman who's navigating your professional journey, or one of the amazing allies here to support the advancement of Black women in the workplace, I am so excited to welcome you. Negotiations happen every day in every corner of our lives, whether you're advocating for yourself, working through complexities in the workplace, maybe even trying to figure out a balance between your personal and professional lives. So we are here today to talk about how gender, identity, and race impact those everyday negotiations. And we want to give you some skills to help you be better at those experiences every day. So I'm thrilled to be the moderator here today for this amazing group of Black women professionals who have forged their way in careers through significant and really exceptional negotiations every day, whether it's in business, law, human resources, or helping people to advance their careers. So I want to also just specifically introduce first Lauren Buckner. She's a business attorney and the founder of Buckner Consulting, with over 17 years of experience in business law and real estate development. Lauren helps businesses navigate complex legal challenges while empowering entrepreneurs to grow. She's known for bringing together business and legal strategy, and she's earned a nickname, Business Builder. Lauren is an international speaker and an industry leader. So welcome, Lauren. Then Christina Clancy is a trusted advisor who has guided first-generation professionals through the complexities of their careers. Christina helps people strengthen their internal foundation to thrive both professionally and personally. She's an expert in helping professionals grow and navigate negotiations through different personalities and cultures. So welcome, Christina. Thank you. And then Beth Ajay is a human resource leader who's spent over 12 years overseeing human resource functions. She's currently the Director of Personnel and Benefits at Midcap Financial. She creates equitable opportunities within organizations, ensuring that the workplace is not just effective, but also inclusive. Her diverse background, from working at FINRA to the World Bank, gives her a unique perspective on navigating negotiations in large organizations. So welcome all three of you. I'm so excited.
Right, yes.
So I want to start, when we hear negotiation, a lot of times we think about maybe negotiating for the price of a car or getting a salary. And I want to start our conversation by asking each panelist today, what does negotiation mean to you? And Lauren, do you want to start?
Oh.
Sure. All right, great day, great day. So excited to be here. Negotiation is literally just the normal art of communicating. We negotiate every day, all day. You negotiate with your pets, your children, people when you're driving, when you go into the store. So negotiation to me is really communication with two or more people working towards a common mutual goal, where each party may have something that they want that's slightly different than the other person, but at the core of it is a mutual benefit. And I think that that's important to understand, because we as women sometimes are afraid of the word negotiation. It seems like it's a fight, and it's not a fight. It really is the best form of communicating. And at the core of it is being confident. So when you are confident about who you are, what you want, it's easy to communicate that, and to hear someone else communicate something back to you that may not be exactly what you want to hear, but you're understanding that it doesn't take anything away from you, and that you all can move towards the middle, towards something that's mutually beneficial to both. So this really happens all the time, and we're seeing that some people don't know how to negotiate in our culture, right? And they don't understand that, and that's where you get the bickering and all that really, really tense, bad feelings. But I just want to just put that to rest, that we negotiate every day. You've negotiated probably 5 times already today before you got here, and you don't realize it, right? So it happens all the time. So it just always really centers around being confident in who you are, knowing that you're bringing something to the table.
That's a great point, yeah.
My next.
Yes,
Okay.
please do.
So I think that's really good, +1. And I would say that negotiation is like coexisting with the environment that you're in, right? Like you said, parents, all of the people. It's a way of life. It's making space for yourself in the environments that you're in, and also understanding that you deserve to be in the room that you're in. And it's okay to like want bigger things than what you were used to when you were coming up, especially if you're first gen coming from a smaller life and trying to go into a bigger one. And negotiation is just your growth stage to get there.
Want me to go ahead? Okay, I think that these ladies gave some really good definitions of negotiation. I'm just gonna add that I think negotiation is also, it's a give and take, right? So in order to be able to negotiate, you need to be flexible in your thinking, right? You also, if you want to negotiate, you also would want to come prepared. You can't negotiate things you don't know anything about. So really, the art of negotiation is coming in, being prepared, doing some research, and being flexible, being adaptable so that you can give and take. Sometimes you need to give a little, you take some, and that will lead to an effective negotiation.
I like that.
Wow, yeah, so we're really hearing very different from what we often think of as just sort of hard bargaining, you know? I'm gonna go in there, I'm gonna get what I need, and not that we shouldn't work for what we want and deserve, but it's something that we're going to do together in a collaborative way. So, and that's part of why I think it's a really great and exciting opportunity to be able to bring negotiation skills into a conversation. Lauren, I want to start by asking you, as someone who navigates business and legal strategy, what negotiation tactics are most effective when you're closing deals with corporate clients or real estate developers? And specifically, what tips can you share for negotiating in high stakes situations?
Yes, so we're going to talk about two things and then we're going to break some things down. And I want you to pull out your paper and pencil because these are things that you're going to implement immediately. So the core pillars of negotiation, I believe, are strategy and confidence, right? So that strategic part is really important because what that tells us is that we have to have a plan. So it's not so much about just, we have this idea that comes through our head and we don't want to talk to somebody about it. You need to actually have a plan that you map out step by step as to how you're going to get there. And then the second part of that is you do have to have the confidence. So you have to do some mindset work. You really do have to believe that you deserve whatever it is that you're asking for. You really do need to believe that you deserve to be in the room. And you really do need to believe that you're valuable. All of that stuff that we hear and we think it's fluff, it's not fluff, it's real. And you can tell when someone is confident when they walk into a room versus when they're not confident. And if I see you walk in and your shoulders are down and you're here, I'm gonna eat you up at the negotiation table. I already know that I can get whatever I want because you're just happy to be there. So we gotta reverse that. So now let's go back to the strategy. This is where I want you to write. The first thing you wanna do is know who is on the other side. Who is the person? Who is the company? And this is beyond that first level of Google search, okay? Nobody wants you to get into an interview or a negotiation, and repeat what you have already, seen on that first level of Google search. Really know who you are dealing with, all right? Second, what? What do they want? What is it that they want? You need to understand it and be able to break it down to the nitty gritty. What is it they desire out of this outcome? And flip it. What is it that you desire? You need to line it up on paper before you go into the negotiation, before you start the first conversation on the phone to set up the meeting to have what you think is the negotiation. Because the negotiation starts the moment any type of communication happens, the email, the text. You're already negotiating, okay? So you need to know what. Third, why? Why is it important for them? Whatever it is that they want, why is it important? Flip it on you. Why is it important for you, whatever it is that you want? And then flip it again. Why is what you want important for them? There is a lot of cross. Like, it's not about you. It's not about them. It's about a we, a us. You need to think about you're walking in here and you're trying to marry someone on any type of level. When? When do you want this to be accomplished? What are the target dates? So when you go into a negotiation, you guide. You say, by when? This is when I'm going to follow up. This is when this needs to happen. This is when I'd like for this to happen. It may not happen that way, but you go in and you guide. Never go in and be only on the receiving side. And finally, how much? Know your ceiling. Know your limits. How much? How much will you take? How much will you not take? What will you tolerate? What won't you tolerate? Like she said, what are you willing to give? Already know that. Do not negotiate against yourself in real time. Have your plan A, B, C, D, E, F. So when they say this, bam, you've already thought about it. It pours confidence, right? A little bit of arrogance, which I like to call false confidence. All right? So strategic planning, having confidence, and you're going to run through those really quickly. Who, what, why, when, how much. Same things we learned in elementary school.
That was good.
That's really good. I mean, so what I'm hearing is obviously this preparation is so crucial, but I really am hearing this idea of understanding, like putting yourself into their shoes also, not just knowing what you want, but figuring out what they want. Do you have any strategies on how to do that, or examples of how someone might figure out what they want sort of before they start that conversation?
What the party on the other side wants.
Yeah.
So you start to figure out, okay, what does this company or person actually do? Who do they serve? Now you start to reverse engineer. Who are their clients? Who are the projects that they've done? So then you analyze what they've actually done. That will start to tell you their values. And you can also drill down to their mission statements. You can look at partners that they have partnered with in the community. That reflects who they are, what they want, what's important to them. And then obviously, what is it that's driven you to talk to them, right? Something was a trigger for that. So whatever that is, you better follow that all the way down to the rabbit hole. Why is it that they are putting this energy out to have this meeting with you, to have this phone call with you? So a lot of it is reverse engineering. So that's why I'm saying it's not enough to just do that first level of Google search. Then you really want to figure out, what are they really doing? Because here's the other thing, and we'll talk about this maybe later. Sometimes when you do that research, you realize you need to moonwalk away, right? Every opportunity ain't the opportunity. Right? So knowing a lot deeper than that first layer will not only help you get the best deal, it'll help you get away from those bad deals.
Yeah, that's incredible advice. So a lot is happening there before you start that conversation.
Oh my God, a lot. The minute you have the thought, you're actually negotiating, because you start to now negotiate with yourself to figure out what you really want. You really are the most important asset. I hope you're understanding that in whatever negotiation you're entering.
So I want to turn it back, as a Black woman in HR leadership, what challenges have you faced when advocating for yourself or others? And what advice do you have for Black women who are navigating similar circumstances?
So I work for a financial services company, and it's predominantly male, predominantly white male at that. So just being a woman, you can get overlooked, right? Sometimes they just forget you're in the room, right? So to Lauren's point is knowing that you deserve to be there. You've done work. I deserve to be in the room with you. It's just getting that. I think sometimes it's just as simple as they're talking about sports, and they just kind of gloss over you. I happen to love sports. So I might throw out a stat, and they're all looking at me like, what is she? How do you know? She knows about football? Like, wait, did your husband teach you that, or did some of the stuff is just really ridiculous. But really, just knowing your worth. Like, I deserve to be in the room. I have a conversation. I am an introvert. I'm not the loudest person in the room, but I sometimes I'm quiet. But when I talk, I want to make sure that it's impactful. I want to be heard, and I make sure. So I've learned to be assertive, a little bit assertive. Like, listen, you are going to listen to me. I do have a good point. So just really doing that without being. You don't have to. It doesn't have to be a negative thing. You don't have to. Be yelled. Some people think you have to be. You have to yell, or they just want to hear the sound of their voice. You don't have to do that to show your presence in a room. But knowing your worth is really, really important, no matter who you are. Right? And then I just think of, there are times when having knowledge, Lauren mentioned that, being prepared, knowing who your audience is really important to help you with negotiations. I'm going to give you guys some examples of when I did some good negotiating and when I did some bad negotiating in my career. Alex mentioned earlier that I worked for FINRA, so I had worked there for a while, and I was fortunate enough to be promoted, and I moved to different teams. But I got to a point where I was ready to, I was tired of the red tape, and I think I want to leave. I was comfortable there. I had a lot of good things there, but I was like, Beth, you're too young to settle, right? You need to go out. You need to see what's out there. And one day a recruiter called me, employment agency. And just FYI, I am pro recruitment agencies, just in case you're wondering. I love them because you can talk to a recruiter and say, you know what? Don't call me if the job is less than this dollar amount. I don't want to work in this area. I don't want to do this. I can tell them things that I can't tell a recruiter that works for the organization. Yeah. Right? So so I really do like them. And so so she called me one day and I was like, okay, well, yeah, I want to leave my job, but this is what I want, this is what. She's like, I have a perfect opportunity for you. I said, okay. I go for the interview, it's a success, they want to hire me. So she's like, well, how much do you want to make? I was like, well, I don't really know, because it was a brand new position. Nobody else had been in that position before. They were making for me, and my job was to create policies and create a whole team. But I didn't know what to do, and I didn't do enough research. So I'm talking to the recruiter, and I say, this is the minimum amount I want, but this is what I'd really like. And most recruiters, they go to bat for you because they get commission off of your salary. I got the worst recruiter in the world who didn't do that. And she tells them the lowest amount that I was. So when I get my offer letter, I see the lowest amount. I was like, what? But at that point, I decided I needed to leave my job anyway. And this was going to be a good opportunity. I should have spoken up then, I didn't. Yeah. Right? So I get into the job, I love my job, but every time I think about my salary, I got hot. Month one passed away. That passed, second month came, and I'm like, I should ask for money. I don't like my salary. So about 4 months into my job, I was like, I can't take it anymore. I'm gonna have a conversation with my boss. So I started my job around June. And so once I do that, I know that you can't go in and just say I deserve a raise. That just never really works. You've got to go prepared. So I did market searches, and I said, hey, for somebody who's doing my job, for the area, I do all this research, and I said, okay, I'm good. I'm going to have this conversation. So I tell a guy that we become really good friends at work, and he tells me, you have balls if you think you're going to go to your boss 4 months after starting to ask for a raise. And I was like, you know what? I do have balls. I can do it. So we scheduled the meeting. And I go into the office, and I'm getting ready to have my spiel. And I say, you know what? I need a raise. And before I can even get into it, you know what my boss says to me? Yeah, I thought you were underpaid.
What? Never happened. Thank you for noticing.
I said, wait,
wow.
I was like, what? Yeah, you thought I was underpaid, but yet you didn't do it. You didn't make any moves to correct that.
Yeah.
So then he says, tell me what you want. So then I'm like, okay, so I asked for a big number. I didn't get that number that day, but I got a raise. And then a few months later, at the beginning of the year, I got another raise.
Let's go.
So what I learned from that is that I needed to speak up.
Yep.
Like you never, as women, a lot of times we think, oh, I'll just work really hard, because I had that debate. Should I talk now, or should I wait till performance management? Should we do this? And I was like, no, speak up. Right? The worst they can tell me is no.
Yeah.
The worst they can tell me is no. Right? Speak up for what it is that I believe I deserve. I work really hard. I still work really hard. I allow my boss to go on vacation. I allow him to do stuff because I take over. So, so know your worth. Don't ever wait. I constantly have this conversation with women all the time. I had another person come to my office and, oh, I work really hard. They should know. Yes, they should know, but they're not going to. You need to speak up. Now, you don't have to talk every battle. You don't have to fight every battle, because timing is everything in negotiations as well. So you don't go to your boss when you heard, like, yeah, the stock is down, and this price stock, or you go for a negotiation that day. It's probably not going to work. But just really finding out the time and really speaking up for yourself. So I had to do that, and I encourage women all the time to do that as well. If and I one of the things I tell myself, I'm like, a man would go into his office and they would ask, and they probably won't even do the work. Half the time they don't show up, but they feel free to ask. I'm gonna do the same thing, and that's it.
Oh wow, thank you, Beth. I love hearing that story, and we do find in research, and I often tell my students, we can't wait to we often think that if we just do the job well, someone's going to come and commend us and reward us, and we can't wait for that to happen. We really have to go in and ask for that, and I love hearing that story, and also the research that you put into justifying what you were asking for. to build your confidence, but then also to build your case. It's a great example. Now, Christina, so what's exciting here too is that you work with a lot of first generation professionals. And I'm wondering and sort of what kind of unique challenges they face in negotiations and how you help them to overcome these challenges.
Okay. So how many people in the room are first gen? Like your parents don't do what you do? Okay, same. So my mom worked at a grocery store when I was younger. So, and she was in a union. And that was like the negotiation. The union negotiated for her. They would get like a 3% raise every year, which is like 10 cents. But from the minimum wage that she made. What I generally like noticed in my own journey was like, that's what I also came in with into corporate. I was in a union before I got into a corporate role, so I didn't really negotiate, but I learned that I needed to. So I help first gens to make sure that they do the research first, kind of like what you said, and make sure that they use all of their resources to their advantage. The stats on first gen are like they don't have relationships that will help them succeed at first because they're all trying to come out of the trenches together. So to ask somebody to help would be taking away from their family. They risk their health for their finances and they put everything into their finance goals because that's what they think stability is going to be. And then they don't really negotiate their salaries. They have this big idea of like what their life is and that what they want to be, but their salary and their benefits don't match that. So some of the strategies that I ask my first gen clients to do is like map out the life that they want to live and make sure that everything aligns with that. So if you want a 6-figure life, you're not going to accept a $40,000 salary, and you have to bridge the gap. You got to do the research to do that, and then you have to find the people to help you do that. Since the relationships are a pain point in the beginning, I suggest that new corporate goers, they do the research of the market. So for example, I'm a program manager. I would tell my fellow program manager for the first time, go see what the in your area, like DC zone 1 pay grade. So what is that pay grade in your role? What is the industry that you're in, and what is the purpose of the industry? And then match what you're doing, your job description to the industry's program management, and then see where you add up, like match up, and prepare for your interviews. And your salary negotiations don't have to be annually. Some of the companies that I have worked for previously, they have 360 reviews. So that means that you talk to your manager, you talk to a peer, and like you go against your like job description on what the company is. So I tell them to do that as well, just so they have multiple data points and they're super prepared to like flip the script when they need to. Also, I ask them to do we can do mock interviews. So the confidence can show through. So they're not walking into the room like this. They're like, they know they're supposed to be in there, and then they can build the career around the lifestyle that they want. Because I think that was really important, and it took me a little bit in my own journey to realize like, oh, I have to make my own choices to be here. And my therapist was right, so I'll tell her that later. She told me that people over 18, if you're responsible for everything that happens. It's no longer a happens to you journey, it's you choose how your life goes. So I like, too long, don't listen. Basically, recap is you choose everything that happens in how your lifestyle is gonna go. And your career is one milestone. It's not the driver of everything. So just make sure you take care of all of the choices that you make because it aligns with your lifestyle.
Yeah, that's fantastic advice, and I love the idea of also practicing.
Mm-hmm.
Do you find that with more experience, the confidence increases and the performance increases in terms of doing those negotiations?
Yeah, because like it's kind of like stage fright, right? When you have to do it to be able to. When I first started talking on stages, I'd be like, talk really fast. But as I started to do it, I was able to like look around, like, oh, hey, like your shirt, you know what I mean? So it's like a natural muscle that you build. So mock interviews do help, and then it's also, I don't know if anybody has ever been to Toastmasters, but you know there are people have filler words. You can remove those. when you do mock
Right,
interviews.
right,
Mhm.
right. And also just to remember, these interviews are negotiations, right? Like
Yeah.
as you were saying from the beginning, all of you, the interview is the start of a negotiation, even if it's just the start of a conversation. Wow, fantastic. So, Lauren, back to you. As a Black woman working in a male-dominated industry, what unique challenges have you encountered in negotiations? And I'm also really curious, how have you used your identity as a strength in these situations?
Yeah, I thought that question was interesting. Well, my identity in itself just, triggers white men. Sorry, right? So I, I started my career as a commercial real estate attorney, and there are just not a lot of women in general in commercial real estate development. And then there surely are not a lot of Black women. There aren't a lot of Black people at the level where I've practiced. And so it's just always been, for some people, a non-spoken uncomfortableness where you can see it in the posturing, right? Or the verbal uncomfortableness where they just say really off the wall things to try to make themselves comfortable. And I've been able to use it to my advantage because I realized that I knocked them off their footing. Just my presence. I haven't even spoken half the time, right? It's just the fact that it's me. And so now they're just a little uneasy. And so, I am a lover. I love people, but I will come in, and if I can smell you a little vulnerability, right, then I'm coming in. And so I'm going to tell you an example. So before COVID and all this, we really used to close a lot of real estate development deals in person. And so I practice at a really high level. So you have a lot of people that come in, a lot of different players. And so a lot of times, you just have a lot of conference calls. And we didn't do Zoom. This is like this new thing where you got to see everybody, which I'm still not okay with, right? But, it's like, you're just on the phone, so you never saw people really. And then we got in the room and we were closing, and we had to actually close or turn pages in order to approve this big loan. And I walked in and everyone was already there. I purposely came in late because I was leading the closing. I walked in and I stand at the top of the long conference room like you really do see on TV, and I have all the binders and I'm starting to pass them out. And I said, well, should we get started? And they said, sure, just as soon as the attorney gets here. And I said, well, she's here. And they were like, well, where is she? I was like, this is really cute. I was like, that is me. Yeah, I guess we should. And so now everyone's uncomfortable, and I represented the developer, and I already had some asks that I was gonna have to ask really quickly, right? So I started right off of the bat asking for what I needed while they were still trying to fumble through things. I'm guessing, I'm like, okay, well, that's great. And then we're just gonna keep moving. And by the time they really got themselves settled, I had gotten a few things that most of the lenders and the investors wouldn't have normally given, but they were just already rattled. And I know that sounds kind of like, right? But it is, right? And it was like, I noticed that they were shook. And so I was able to say anything, and I speak pretty well, and I'm able to articulate, and they didn't even have a moment, I don't even think, to think that they should maybe think, let me reconsider this, right? Because it came across very smoothly, very confident, very demure, you know what I mean? And then, I had to get that in there, right? And they were flustered. So, but I will tell you though, it happens a lot as Black women, as women, and I think just being a Black woman walking down the street every day should prepare you for life. And I want you to understand that when you are negotiating, whether it's a real estate development deal, your own deal, you're trying to get an increase, you're starting your own business, you bring your life experiences with you. That really makes you who you are, right? I can study to be an attorney, but Lauren is really who you're seeing show up. And so you have to pull those life experiences. We're used to fighting. We're used to being in situations where people count us out. And so it gives me nothing but pleasure to make people, regret ever second guessing me because I'm a Black woman, right? Let's go.
That's fantastic. Wow, what a great story. I'm going to remember that for a long time. Incredible. Well, so you also, Christina, have an interesting life story in terms of, you've talked a lot, I think, in your media about having grown up in a large intersectional family, and that experience has taught you something about negotiating and navigating different personalities and setting boundaries. Can you talk a little bit about how you use that experience to help the people that you advise in your work?
So I was raised by one of my older sisters, and if anybody in here has sisters, you know how hard it is to like get things from them, especially if you're the younger sister. And I think, multicultural is all of my mom's side of the family is white and all of my dad's side of the family is black. So it's very different, and it's intergenerational. The sister that raised me is 20 years older than me. So we grew up in Pittsburgh, but we grew up in different Pittsburghs because they were 20 years apart. So when I was asking for things from her, because she was my guardian, she didn't understand why. So I had to negotiate before I even asked. So if the teacher would say, hey, I need you to give me $50 for this field trip, I had to reverse engineer in middle school, how do I get this $50 from my sister? Because there's also 5 other kids trying to get $50 from my sister. So I had to honestly pitch prep to get the 50 before I even got into corporate. So navigating my family with different personalities, different understandings of the world, and honestly, frankly, my sister has white privilege. I didn't have that in Pittsburgh because everybody saw me, I'm biracial. Everybody saw me as other, and with the unknown factor of me being biracial, I always had to extra prove myself too. So that helped me be prepared, and to have the moments of when do I need to be aggressive, when can I have people off their feet, and then just get what I need to get without less and less having to prove myself. So in corporate, what that looks like is I already come in with a certain level of understanding of why I'm here. I have my own North Star. I want to live this certain type of lifestyle. This career is helping me get there. I'm not putting all of my eggs in one basket to be here. I'm not loyal to this company 100%. This is a transaction. And I help people focus on that. Don't get so absorbed in your title. Don't get so absorbed in what this company does for you, because at the end of the day, if you look up what employee looks like what the definition of employee, it's to use. So as an employee, I get to use the company the way they're using me. So I'm gonna make sure it's a two-way street, and I prepare first gens to do that too, just because I don't want them to think that there's so much security in a role. Now, whether they're an entrepreneur or an employee, the future of work, the way that tech is going, it's turning us all into contractors. So you have to understand what type of benefits you need. Does this employee provide that? And all of the things, you have to reverse engineer your lifestyle. And growing up with so many different factors and personalities, I was able to coexist with people who are harder to deal with first before I even got to corporate. So all of you in the room, I would suggest you to find out what your personality style is, and then what your attachment style is. Personality, so you know the quirks and stuff on what it's like to deal with you, so you can prepare for that in your negotiations. And then for attachment style is if you are insecure, then you can find out what the exact steps are for you to be confident and secure in your relationships. And that matters because it's a spatial awareness thing. You don't want to be at a different pace than the rest of the world and wondering why you're not getting the stuff that you want.
Well, that's great advice. And I keep hearing from you as well, just this constant effort to make sure that you have clarity around what you want.
Yeah.
Do you work a lot with your clients on sort of redefining or revisiting that? Is that something that you encourage people to revisit frequently? Or how does that work?
One of my best friends, she is starting a hair care salon. And I'm like, what do you want? And she's like, I just want to replace my job. And I'm like, no, what do you want in life? With your husband, are you guys gonna have kids? Are you guys gonna have a second household? That's what you decide before you even open up the salon. You have to have a bigger goal. And I think that you have to be comfortable with saying, I want this. Part of the reason why you're stressed out and part of the reason why you are your health is going this way is because you're not telling the world what you want. You're not going after it. And it wasn't easy to say that to my best friend, love her, and she's kind of stubborn. So, but telling her that, she's just and I saw the release in her after I was just tell the world what you want. And but there is a lot of my clients that don't say that out loud. Like Beth said, oh, they know I work hard. They know, but they're not going to give you an extra $50K if you don't ask for it, you know?
Yeah, and it can be hard to always know what you want, right? Like it
It
really
is.
does take a lot of work to get clarity around that, and it changes, right?
But it's your responsibility though,
Yeah,
right? Because like earlier I said, after you're 18, you get to choose. Like you're responsible for everything from when you wake up to when you go to sleep. And if you have a husband or kids or responsible in your family, you're responsible for that too. So you have to know what you want so you can lead the people who are assigned to you and coexist with them properly. And not like earlier I said something about the healthcare of first gen professionals. Our health is getting bad in our 30s. Like our life expectancies, if we are first gen, is maybe like 70, 80. So if we're in our 30s to 40s, that's our midlife. If we're not taking care of our health or knowing what we want and getting what we need to get done, that's our life at stake. Like every decision is measuring up against our life expectancy. So you should, like, I encourage my clients to make sure that they do know what they want.
Absolutely, and can't get there if you don't know what you want, right? Well, back to you and your incredible experience as an HR professional. So I think a lot of people are wondering, and we were talking a little bit earlier as well, when people negotiate for their salaries or benefits, they sometimes worry about how to do that, how to advocate for themselves without necessarily offending, or also while still sort of leaving a good impression. And what kind of advice do you have for everyone here on how to do that well?
So I'm just going to say one to reiterate: negotiation just have to be about salary. It doesn't have to be about dollars and cents. Christina made a really good point about figure out what you want. And know that you're evolving. So what you wanted last year may not be what you need or want this year. So once you evolve, you take count. It's a good idea. Like even if you're not honest with anybody else, be honest with yourself. What is it that I want, right? What do I need now? Or we go through different phases in life, right? So you start off at 20, and then next thing you know, you're having get married, you're having kids, you're doing whatever it is, and with that, all your needs will change, right? So you definitely take stock of that. I think a lot of people think that negotiation is just salary, but you can negotiate benefits, you can negotiate vacation time. There's nothing really that you can't negotiate. And as I mentioned before, all they can tell you is no, we don't do that here. So I remember I have a finance and accounting background. That's how I started off at school, and I worked throughout undergrad. And I had I realized this job, I worked for a small company, and they made me do everything and paid me nothing. But with that, I learned a lot. And I started to realize, this HR thing, what is HR? So I knew I needed another job, and it just so happened they were looking for an accountant. And she was HR, and so I said, listen, I'll do all your accounting, but what is HR? Can you tell me about that? So I didn't really learn HR in school. It was really, I had a manager, she's like, yeah. And so I would do my work, and then she would just teach me what she knew. And that was how that's how I even knew what human resources was. And that's how eventually I started my other career. So you can negotiate sometimes the terms. Yes, I'll do this job, but I want to learn something else as well. So you can do that. You can go with your benefits. So I mentioned before that we're a predominantly male company, but we're interested in looking for female finance professionals. And so what we've done is we've tried to pivot a little bit of some of our benefits to be more attractive to women, to either attract them and then to keep the ones that we do have. So we've extended maternity leave benefits, and even earlier this year we incorporated something like a fertility benefit, which is not just for women, but it really is for anybody who wants to extend their families. So if you are realizing that you have fertility problems, we have doctors with us that will give you, everyone thinks IVF is the only solution. It's not. There are many ways to start a family, including adoption and surrogacy. So my company now offers thousands of dollars to women to attract them to come into the company and to stay. So yes, so if you, when you're thinking about that, that could be something that would be, if you know that you're going through those issues, or you know you want to start a family soon, having those type of benefits would be very attractive, and it's something that you could think and look at as your overall package. What a lot of people don't realize is some companies have different strategies when they start. Some companies are going to say, we're going to be leaders in the market and we're going to pay the highest amount of salaries. And some companies just don't have that bandwidth, and they say, you know what, we can't pay the highest, we're just gonna really offer you really good benefits. So when you're looking for an opportunity, be it a new job, whatever, I encourage you to look at it holistically, not just your dollars and cents, but what other things can they do for you. My company, our competitors are JP Morgan and Morgan Stanley. These are huge companies. We're nowhere near that. We're like 300 employees, right? We have finance, but what we can offer you, so JP Morgan, they can give you a lot of money, but ask every one of them, they don't have lives. They work 36 hours in a 24-hour day. They make all this money and they don't have any time to spend it unless you take a minute to go on Amazon. They don't have the time, right? But my job will offer you work-life balance. You can go home at 5 and 6. And if you need to work home today, you can work from home this week. We do that stuff, so that's how we do an attractive thing. We try to attract other people. So look at that kind of thing. When you're having an opportunity, look at it holistically. It's not just dollars and cents. What is the benefit of that? I would do offer letters, and the standard was everybody started at 2 weeks. But I was doing offer letters for people, and they got 4 weeks. And they were like a similar level of mine, and I'm like, wait a minute, how did that happen? They were better negotiators.
Yeah.
They asked, and like I said, all I can tell you is no. Or they're like, yeah, let me get back to you. When you go into a negotiation, even from when you go to interview, when you go into negotiation, I think attitude is everything, right? So I feel like you go into a negotiation with a positive attitude, I'm gonna get it, right? You don't have to be cocky, you don't have to spill all your cards to the other person that you're negotiating with, but attitude, going in and just really, have that positive, I'm worth it.
Yeah.
And I can get this. And sometimes you have to walk out the door. I think it was Lord. Every opportunity is not for you. Sometimes you've got to leave. So I think when you think of all those things, I think that'll help you with negotiation. I also think that if in human resources or your recruiter, use them as your ally, as your friend. Try to make them that. I think a lot of people go wrong is they don't network enough. Even if you come into an interview and you just go, you don't smile or you don't talk to anybody except for the person that you think is interviewing you. And you've gotten this so wrong. A lot of times that interview started the minute you walked on that premises. Yep. How you treated everyone. You don't have to be bubbly and be the loudest person in the room, but treat people with respect. It goes a long way into negotiating. Because if I realize I met you and I like you, I can bend the rules for you a little. Sometimes that can happen. I really liked her energy. So you know what? Yeah, we don't normally do this, but for her, we're gonna do that. Or you know what? We didn't have this job, but maybe because of this person, I'm gonna create this opportunity in this organization. It happens. So how you see, how you perceive, how your positive thoughts for yourself, just for yourself, it is great and helps in negotiating.
Yeah, that's good.
Oh, that's great advice. So I'm really just still thinking about how just personalizing that person, right? And creating a real relationship, connecting with them. And yeah, that's so important. I get a lot of questions from students. They worry that if they advocate for themselves, they might offend or lose an opportunity. Is there anything else you can say about that in terms of advice?
So I think questions are good. I love questions. It's how I find, but sometimes it's how you ask the questions and who you're asking the questions to. They matter. I think Rory made a point before, do the research, and sometimes you've got to do more than the surface Google search, right? Know the organization or the person that you're meeting that you're going to negotiate. If you can, try to find out as much as you can about them. How you ask the questions is just as important sometimes as asking the question that you want. So you're saying, you can find out information without saying, I'm not going to take the job if you don't give me this. But just, do you offer that? Well, how can you do that? I would really, I'm interested in doing this. Is there something that you can do for me? I'm just giving, scenarios. We can talk specifics later if you have a specific scenario. But I think asking questions are important. And this is where you can use your recruiter or your HR person, whoever's there to say, hey, listen, how does the culture really work? Right? How are these benefits? Is there something that you can give me so I can really take a look at it? And I think studying. I mean, if you're not the math person in your group, get your friend, get your family member who is the math person to do the calculations for you to see, is this worth you spending the time and energy, or whether you should move on to the next.
That's great advice.
Can I add to that?
Yeah, please do.
LinkedIn. Ask questions on LinkedIn. if say, you said, is it right to ask the question? Test the question on LinkedIn.
Oh, that's
Say, hey, is there any HR people in my timeline? This is the question. So you can market test it to see, and then that's practice. That's like a mock interview.
Yeah, and I think a lot of like the HR team, it doesn't happen in every company, but I do think a lot of them are there to help you. There are some people that are mad and bitter about their jobs and they're not very helpful. That happens everywhere. But I think a lot of them want to, because you're helping them out as well. We want to bring good people into the organization. Or if it's my your personal business, I want to do business with good people. So it's just a matter sometimes of, just like you said, personalizing, just asking questions, and try to make sure they're not offensive, but and let them know I'm enthusiastic. I really am interested. It's how, that attitude, again, it helps.
Yeah. And like you said, the conversations may be a little different if it's a recruiter than the HR representative. That's such an interesting point to keep in mind. Well, I guess we're getting closer to wrapping up here, so I want to ask each of you if there's anything in particular in your negotiation experience that you want to share that you haven't had a chance to share yet. And then maybe also just if there's one single piece of advice that you'd like to leave with each audience member in terms of their future negotiations. Lauren, do you want to start?
Oh, I just have to think about that first one. I mean, I don't know if there's anything that I haven't shared that I want to share. I mean, I think what I want to share is that life is a negotiation, and that it doesn't stop. I'm constantly negotiating. I left, the corporate structure last year to start my own business, and so literally every day of my life is a negotiation. I'm still bringing in my own clients. I'm still trying to figure out, my right partners. I'm still working to build, and so it's a constant art that you should always try to refine, and never feel like negotiation can't help you. So I think that's what I like to share. And I think, the big thing, I know you keep hearing me say, confidence, but I'm back and forth with whether or not I think confidence or strategic planning is the most important, but I think it has to really start with the confidence, because you won't even step out there to think about negotiating if you haven't done the work yourself. And so I'd like to say, I want you to take note of the soundtrack that's playing in your head. And if that soundtrack is not pumping you up, you need to reverse it. You need to get it out, and you need to replace it with something that stimulates you. The words that you say to yourself, they truly matter. They really are important. And we are in a time where people talk about personal development and self-development, and people's eyes get rolled, they're like, oh my God, but it's really true. And you can tell the difference between people who talk to themselves in a positive way and people who don't. When you're in a situation, people who know how to calmly, resolve conflict, who can just coexist with other people, are people who can actually exist with themselves in a confident space. And when you step out to negotiate with anyone, you've got to have first done that negotiation with yourself. So I really think working on your mindset, your personal development, doing the work, right, really, really matters. And it helps you to even think that it is possible for you to negotiate on any level, whether that just be getting your latte correctly, whether that might be changing lanes, whether that's, with your partner at work, if you're an entrepreneur with your clients. It all really is going to start with, who you are, what you're saying to yourself at the core. But then get planning, right? Don't run out there without a plan, I have to say too, because if you just run out there super confident with bad information, you're gonna confidently fall down. But you're gonna be confident and you can stand right back up and keep going, right? But let's not do that fall.
I love that, and they're so self-reinforcing too, right? If you can get that right mindset to start and plan your strategy, having that strategy will make you more confident, and then getting out there and practicing and doing it will build your confidence and improve your strategy. So I think it's a really beautiful self-reinforcing cycle that you're recommending here.
Thank you.
Great. Christina.
So 2 things. One, I would say growing your career and your lifestyle is a faith walk. So you need to be prepared with your skill, but a certain level of growing is how you were designed. So you have to like talk to your creator, whoever you pray to. I constantly say in prayer. And then the second thing is like, oh wait, I lost it. It'll come back. Negotiation is a spectrum. So yes, you have to be prepared, and some of the negotiations might be like nice because you might be able to find things that you relate to the person that's on the other side. But there are times where you have to get aggressive. It's kind of like driving on 295. Sometimes you'll be okay, but other times you have to aggressively merge and risk your life.
Every time.
Every time. I mean, sometimes at like 3 a.m. you might not be in a negotiation on 295, but you have to know that there's a spectrum, and you have to figure out how you're going to adjust. It's a constant pivot. It's never something that you really arrive to. It's something that you're constantly going to be like, it's ongoing. So if you're not comfortable with ongoing things, look up what a life cycle looks like ecology, and start to get familiar with that process. Because it doesn't always look great. Like seeds are formed in the dark. So, and then there's a time for it to sprout. So you have to understand where you are to build your confidence and be able to negotiate and still follow through with all of those things.
Absolutely, and then as you were saying, I'm thinking of you on that highway. You need to know where you're going, right? So
You
if you're going to be
to know your
assertive,
exit. Like know where you're headed and know the exit that you ahead of time. Know your exit ahead of time, or you're risking it all.
Yeah. Okay, excellent, fantastic advice.
What they said. No, I think I don't have much to add. They really did bring good points. I would just say too, knowledge is power.
Yeah.
And to constantly feed yourself with knowledge. Constantly just be aware. I had a boss who told me, she's like, always look. Even when you're not looking for a new job, just always look and see what's out there. What's the latest certification? What is it that you want? Just look. And so I would say just be eager to have that knowledge, and then do all the things that they said, and I think you'll be good to go. But you're right, negotiation we do it all the time. It's in every part of life, but we just want to do it effectively to get the things that you want.
I love that, and as you're looking for that knowledge, look around and figure out what those people around you are negotiating. What are the people in your workspace negotiating? It's not just, as you were all saying, salary. It might be, how did they get on that team? How did they get to sit in on that meeting? How did they become part of that? And keep looking, keep that curiosity going. So that's great advice. Did you want to add anything?
I was just gonna say, that's a whole nother panel, but it is really using your sisters, using your community, and not just thinking that what you want is just unique to you, because other people want it or have gotten it, and then asking. And I'm laughing because I'm sitting in the speaker room with our keynote earlier, and she was just talking about something, and I was like, can you go back? I would actually like to do what you just talked about doing. How did you do that? And then we broke it down, and she's like, well, this is what you do. It's just, first of all, I had to be confident, right? And she was obviously open, but I just learned how I can secure opportunity that she has that I would like, and she gave me some tools.
Yeah.
So closed
great.
mouths don't get fed, right? Let's get it, ladies.
If you're an entrepreneur, really use the resources from the entrepreneurship. I was talking to Danielle earlier, and she gave me the cheat code on how to get through DC government loopholes. So just talking to her is going to help me secure future work. So simple conversations can be a mentoring moment. It doesn't have to be a year-long commitment talking to somebody. It could really be one interaction. I truly believe that what you need is in the room. So it's important for us all to be here. I might have something that I think is not really easy. It might be something that I do that's easy for me that you might need.
Yeah.
So ask me a question. Don't continue to be curious, basically.
And keep at the top of your mind what you want, right?
Yep.
Know what you want.
Well, that's fantastic. I appreciate all of you and these really, really great conversations today. Thank you, Christina and Beth and Lauren. And I think, did you have some codes or information that you wanted to share?
Oh, I did. And I'm not really sure of everyone we have in the room. So, I believe, and this is the lawyer in me, everything that you say you own is important. And so I believe every time you have a negotiation that you should use a non-disclosure and confidentiality agreement. Now, if you're in corporate America, you probably can't slap an NDA down on your supervisor and say, listen, I want you to sign this. So this does not apply to the HR situations, right? But if you are an entrepreneur, or if you're someone that has a small-time, part-time, quarter-time business, or you're just a regular person and you're trying to do something and level up, and you need to share confidential information with someone to see if it's a good fit, you should always use an NDA and confidentiality agreement. That is something that a lot of people get burned in when they go to negotiate, because they sit down and they give you everything and then you leave. But you never had an agreement that said you can't share what I just told you. And then all of a sudden you see your business idea and you're like, well, I wonder how. You just walk them through exactly how to do it and why to do it or whatever. So I wanted to just gift you guys an NDA. And if you don't have a use for it now, that's okay. Just tuck it away. One day you will. And I want to encourage you to find your reason to use an NDA. I want you to find your reason to go out here and negotiate another level for you. So if you would text the word elevate to this word or to this number, 206-408-3879, I will send you an NDA and confidentiality agreement that I've drafted for you, along with a video that tells you how to use it. Again, the number is 206-408-3879. Text the word elevate. That's ELEVATE, because we are elevating to the next level. And I will send you the NDA. And most importantly, we will be connected, and let me serve as a resource for you.
Can I add one more thing? Just made me think of it. So if you are an employee, when you go into the company that you're going into, have a lawyer review your employment contract. So you can know, have Lauren review your employment contract, because you need to understand what your risks are growing. Because I'm under an NDA right now for my previous employer. That means that the skill set that I sold to them in that role, I can't use it to sell for another year in the market. And you need to know what your parameters are when you go into that company. So you know that when you leave, or if the relationship that you were in with the company broke, what does your parameters look like after you leave? Can you be sued? Because companies will sue you as a person.
Yeah, all agreements, and this is a whole nother panel, so sorry. But literally, any agreement that you have, you need to read it. And if you don't understand it, you need to reach out to an attorney. So make sure you reach out to me, seriously, because a lot of times we do negotiate against ourselves because we don't understand the words in documents. We think they're not important, and maybe today they're not important. But the great thing about working with an attorney is we never work in the present, okay? Which is why we're very annoying, right? It's like always, but what if, and what about when? Because we're always thinking down the line. So even though this provision may not matter to you right now, we will be thinking about you in 3 years and 5 years. We'll know what this means if you want to exit your job, if you want to pivot in your own life. So never sign a form that you don't understand. Never be forced to agree at the moment. You can verbally say, yep, I'm in, but I'm gonna need to review this with my team. Never sign, let me say that again, never sign in the moment. I don't care who it is. I don't care if it's your best friend. We don't just sign documents without reviewing them and revising. There's always at least one revision that can be made.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm so
And you
sorry.
can convey the confidence that the excitement, right? The enthusiasm.
Yes, what she said. 1,000%.
Yeah.
Don't sign under duress. Never.
You can be enthusiastic.
It is.
Yeah. Don't be too happy. Yay! Look at all these recording artists who were so happy, and then they signed the worst deals of their lives. Don't do it. The opportunity is not going to go away, and if it goes away, it wasn't for you. I'm serious. If they're like, well, we need 15 minutes right now, it's not for me. Thank you so much for this opportunity, but I'm gonna wait. Okay, so sorry.
And I just have to add, because the story I heard years ago is so relevant for this contract business. So I heard a couple years ago, I was on a panel with a lawyer as well, and he said he reviews a lot of these contracts where a larger medical company will say, this is standard in the contract,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
That's
everything's
standard.
standard.
But he said that doesn't mean that many of his clients have addendums to the standard contract, right? So we're used to hearing, if we're not lawyers, well, that's standard, I guess there's nothing I can do. A lot of people have that with an addendum, right? So just, again, it can be really, really good idea to consult.
And that's a negotiation tactic, actually.
It is.
Well, this is standard.
Yeah, it's the like,
It makes
show
you like,
face.
oh, well,
Let me conform.
Especially like if you're doing severances or your
Ooh.
terminations,
Oh.
like that's a whole other hour.
Right.
Oh,
Sorry.
I hijacked this.
We did.
That, but yes, have someone review it, never sign under immediately.
So last example. Promise that I'll be off stage. With my NDA at not the last company, but the company before that, I wasn't allowed to have a side business. It was their agreement said anything that was business development, but it wasn't specific to the industry I was in. So, and I had a counterpart who, we were in an engineering firm, she sold candles and got fired because her business development work was online when she was marketing her candles. That was directly against our employment contract. So that's why I said know what you want and know the contracts that you are under, everything, because you really can risk it all. And corporate contracts they're gonna do everything that they can to make sure that they're getting 100% or more of the use of what your skill set is. And they're protecting that.
Yeah, great advice. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
You want to say something else?
no,
Thank you.
I was apologizing, so
No,
sorry.
that's fantastic. I think we are all appreciating and enjoying this really great conversation. So thank you again all for being here, and I think that's it for.
Yes, thank you. Have an amazing day. Cannot wait to hear all the great stories that are going to come from you all. Yes.